Welcome to the Guilty Party.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Guilty Party Podcast with your co-hosts, Patrick Madsen and Micah Labrosse. Season 2 of the Guilty Party Podcast is proudly presented by Medusa Beard Oil Company. Medusa Beard Oil is a designer beard oil catered to the modern man. Make no mistake, this is not your dad's beard oil. This is a beard oil of the gods. They have 6 scents, fueled by all natural ingredients and essential oils, topped off with pheromones to give you that extra edge. For orders, please go to their Facebook page, facebook.com/Medusa Beard Oil CO. Once again, that's facebook.com/Medusa Beard Oil CO. All right, guys, we're back, and I'm coming to you from the closet, which I'm not coming out of because we're in the middle of a move.
You know, it's funny you bring up closet because when Beck and I went on vacation last year, I made her listen to the whole saga of R. Kelly in the Closet. Have you watched it?
No. Hold on. When did you make her do that?
The entire way down to South Padre right before we put that show.
and your decision was just like, hold on, babe, I'm going to take you on a quest right now.
I think she brought the joke up. Like something in the closet. I'm like, hey, have you heard R. Kelly's? And she's like, what? And I was like,
listen, you've never been in the closet like R. Kelly, so let me show you. You know,
she hated it, but she couldn't stop watching it. She's like, there's more. And I'm like, of course there's more.
I think that's pretty accurate about how I felt about it. It was like, this. I don't know why I can't look away. You know, it's just one of those things.
It's so good. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's just like an over descriptive like R&B. Just like saga. that's my opinion. Sorry if anybody,
it's the Marvel
you never
saga
know
of the R&B universe.
And dude, there's somebody out there right now that's like, you motherfuckers, like, I love R. Kelly so much, and dude, they're just so pissed. And I'm like, dude, you don't know who you're gonna offend these. Yeah. Well, yeah. Speaking of, yeah, who's not these days? Golly. Okay. Well, dude, since the last time we did this, we were on topics such as, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein. We were talking about, what was it? Child sex trafficking. I mean, we were on very serious topics, and then we took some time off. And Micah, go ahead and share some of the things that happened during that time off for you.
Yeah, dude. Lots of stuff, and
I can think of a major thing.
I made a tiny human. It came out in a weird way, but I made a tiny human in November.
Yes, you did.
No, Beck and I, we welcomed a baby girl, Stella Jane, in late November, a couple days before my birthday. So Absolutely. Happy birthday to me. But she's beautiful, she's happy, she's healthy, and I could not be more excited to be a dad to a second kid and a girl.
Bro, I remember when you told me, and we like, you called me out of the blue, and I remember when you told me, you're like, bro, we're pregnant. I remember the first thing I thought, like the moment you said it without me even having a reaction, was it's a girl. I just had that. It was the weirdest thing. It was like this aura. I was just like, it's a girl. Like I just had it in my head, and then boom, she's like in this life. It's just funny. Like time is of the essence, because I remember that call like it was yesterday, and now this life is already here in reality, and I'm assuming already asleep in her bed right now, and it's just, dude, it's just funny. Time goes by so much faster than you think, man. But here we are, season 2, and Micah's got a baby girl now, and it's like it's cool stuff, man. So congrats to that, and everybody listening congratulations to Micah and Becca on a beautiful, healthy baby. So that's like one of the things, man. Anything else?
I think 2020 for a lot of people, and I'm going to be doing a video on this hopefully in the next week when I have got some free time.
For sure.
To get on my hands. 2020 was a year that either broke you or it broke you and you figured out a way to crawl out of a pit. And I think that was the scenario for me, where back in the quarantine, that lockdown, I really hit a rock bottom, and for me it was to decide, do I find a way to climb out of this hole, or do I just open that trap door, go down, and never come back? And I think it was a good learning experience. And once I got past that, there was a lot of new things that I started doing. So I started teaching myself photography. I've started doing a few projects in the studio for a couple artists here locally, which I'm hoping to do some more this year. I'm working on some new business ideas. I'm preparing just like you to figure out where music is heading, in
It's a great question.
2021. If it's if
Right.
it's even going to come back, that's a question that everyone's got in their heads. I'm just learning to, I think, really enjoy life and appreciate how busy I am. And not in the sense of like I've got something going on every day, but I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine where I was just like, man, I got to get this done. I'm working on this. I've got this next week. I've got this scheduled. I'm playing here, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And to me, I'm like, oh man, I'm not that busy. And then he's like, dude, do you realize how busy you are compared to like what I'm doing? And I think it's just like you and I, our mentality has always been like hustlers in a way, like, hey, we're always going to look to, even if it takes us, 6 months to a year to get there,
Yeah.
or however long it is, what's new on the horizon that can not only fuel our creativity, but also drive us to be providers both for our families and just for ourselves, because we're never, wanting to stay where we're at. So that's kind of the state of myself, of where
Yeah, I
I've
think
been.
you and I are the guys that we've always respected the hustle. We've never been scared of challenges or the grind. But I think like, when you're like that, it's really easy to try to fit like 50 pounds in a 25-pound bag every day. And at night, you're like, you got a lot of things done, but you're always falling short of your expectations. So there was a lot of days like in my life, like during the pandemic and continuously doing too much throughout the day, that I would always fall short and I would go to bed thinking I failed, even though I got a lot done. It's really just kind of
Right,
balancing. It's
yeah.
like, well, you can't get all that done. Why? Because there's only 24 hours in the day and you got to sleep at some point. And it's like you and I, or anybody with that type of personality, it's really easy to kind of get obsessive with it, and just try to get so much done because we love progress, right? And there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with it, but
exactly.
it's like, man, you got to take you got to take the small victories, right? And I think that's like one of the biggest lessons, dude, I've learned during this. Small victories are everything, because the large ones will come when you've put in the proper time into the small ones.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the way that we're built. We're wired to never be satisfied with an average day's work, in a sense. But it's so easy also for us to get so used to how much work we're doing, taking that load on, that we think it's nothing. And we're always thinking, hey, the grass is greener on the other side. There's more I could be doing. And we never take that step back to realize, like, you know what? We're actually doing a lot. Like, let's be satisfied. Let's enjoy what we're doing. And then once we get past that hurdle, enjoy the next thing. Otherwise, we get to a point where we're doing so many things, we get burnt out because we're always like, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. And that's not the case at
Right.
all. But you got to have conversations, I think, with people to understand that. Like, I really didn't understand that until I sat down with my buddy a few weeks ago, complaining like, there's so much more I want to be doing, I could be doing. He's like, man, you just got to take a step back. Like, you're doing a lot. And not only that, you're balancing having a wife, 2 kids, along with a full-time job and all that kind of stuff. Like, it takes time. Enjoy where you're at right now, because it's never going to
Yeah,
stay the
well, I
same.
mean, like think about if you took a pie chart, right, and you were able to see how much time you dedicated to things, and like here's your career on a pie chart, here's the work for your full time job, here's the balance in the pie chart of dedicated time to your family, right? One thing I noticed, like if you were looking at that pie chart, when I was trying to do so much, and I was just so driven, and I still wasn't like, I tried to get 8 tasks done a day, but I would only get 5, because I mean realistically 5 was all you were gonna get. What it made me realize was that you don't really have time for any extracurricular things. Now what do I mean by that? It's like friends, right? Or the wifey wants to go to a special restaurant on a special day, that's, I don't know. There's things that you have to like be like, oh, I can't because I got to do this, and then you start to stress out because you want to fit that in. And the thing about
Yeah,
the thing about
totally get that.
extracurricular activity is it can be spontaneous. It can come out of nowhere. Like a friend, that wants to hang out that you haven't heard from in a while. And then you're like, sorry, bro, I know it's been 6 months, but I ain't got time for you. It's not something you like, and it's not something they're going to like either, because there's a sense of vulnerability of them reaching out to you because it's been a long time, and I'm being oddly specific because shit like this happened to me, you know? and so it's just like, I don't know, like when...
They're like, you are
yeah,
an
well, you know,
asshole,
it's easy
bro.
for them to think that because you're like, you know, they're like, oh, I haven't talked to you in forever. And you're like, I just don't got time. And it's like, well, who does, bro, during this pandemic when everything, you know, is shut down? You know, who does got time? Unless you're just quarantining at the house living off of unemployment. You know, it's like, I don't know.
Dude, isn't it funny that with quarantine and the lockdowns and ever since the pandemic hit, we've had less time on our hands?
Yeah, dude, that's for
I would have thought that we would have a lot more.
Yeah, no, that's for sure for me, man, because I mean, I'm not knocking anybody that lived off of unemployment. Do what you got to do to get by during this thing. I didn't qualify for it. Nor did I really even try to get it, to be honest. So I just always have been a put in the work and the reward will come, you know, reap what you sow. And so, yeah, you know, I started grinding down. We're in the middle of a move right now, you know, so still had to pay rent, you know, still had to do things. And, you know, life was a little bit different in some aspects, you know, being that the project you and I were in, you know, we walked away from that. And so there was a lot of not only like mentally challenging things, life altering things, but then there was the challenge of survival almost, right? Because I remember when that pandemic first started, no one knew what the hell to think. And it was just tons of stress about the, you know, the worrisome of what is going to happen in the future. But one thing I noticed out of that pandemic is a lot of new faces in Texas, bro, and they weren't always here before this pandemic. What's it like in Fort Worth? A lot of new people moving in, or?
It's so many. It's like every day I run into someone that is a recent transplant from somewhere, whether it be California, New York, even Florida and a few other states. It's like everyone's trying to get out and get to freedom. Like, that's cool, bro. But make sure let's keep this.
You know what's up, man. That's it right there.
Don't California my Texas is the new saying that everyone.
I've never understood. So think about that. That's a perfect saying, though, right? At completely opposite ends of the political and financial spectrum. You got Texas with a very strong economy. You got California that, honestly, bro, I don't know how anybody survives there off of, you know, minimum wage or whatever. I mean, my sister used to live in Orange County, and the apartment they were living in, and my sister and her husband have phenomenal jobs, software developer. She used to be a paralegal, and, you know, really high income jobs, but they were still living in an apartment with a roommate. And this apartment was smaller than the one that, you know, I'm moving out of now. And I just remember how much they were paying on it. And so it's just like, I think California is proof of where America can go with inflation and bad policy. And I think the residents or anybody that's from California now is starting to realize that local government really matters.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
With that whole...
It's a huge thing. I was talking to someone, or I was filling in at a church last week, and one of the guys playing there, he moved here, I don't know, maybe like 3-4 years ago. And he's from Orange County area. And I was asking, like, is it still pretty locked down? Because I know I know that LA is pretty locked down. He's saying it's not as bad, but they're still, you know, having rules and regulations, but they're just not enforcing as much.
Well, I mean, yeah.
So
think about before the pandemic, man. It was still bad, right? I mean, $4 gas. I mean, you got $1 million houses that if you came here in Texas, they're shacks, right? You know, or I mean, compared to Texas, you know, they're shacks, and it's just a weird thing. So I think it's going back to that saying, like, don't California my Texas. It's like, yeah, bring the money, leave the values, right? It makes a lot of sense because why? I've never understood the mentality to flee from a place, right? Leaving a place that you think is bad, you're going to uproot your entire family and all your belongings and move to another place, right? The grass is greener on the other side, essentially. Never understood why people do that, and then they try to turn it into the same thing they left. It's almost a complete, like, insanity method, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I was reading an article couple weeks ago that the amount of people that are moving to Texas, like there's only enough house inventory for like a whole month for all the buyers. That's like one of the new things that Biden is trying to.
Hold on, what is
encourage,
that?
which
What
we'll
does
get
that
to
mean?
in
Like
a little
house
bit.
inventory? What do you mean? Like,
So like right now it's a seller's market. There are more buyers out there than there are sellers, which means let's say you've got 10 homes and you've got 50 buyers. If they don't know like if there are going to be any new construction houses, next month, if anyone else is going to put their house up for sale, you only have 10 houses. That's
gotcha.
it. Once those 10 houses are gone, there's no more houses left for the month for people
so
to
essentially
buy.
you got 40 buyers that are left with their hands in the air, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like one of the things that Biden is proposing, which we'll get to in a little bit with him and stuff, is he's trying to encourage new construction homes, like for them to like put a rush order on a lot of them, whether it be apartments or new construction, because I guess there's not enough homes to go around. But I mean, I don't know. We've always had issues, especially here in Texas, with real estate, but it's gotten worse in the last year with everyone trying to, be safe and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get to that. I think there was something else regarding California.
Oh man, what's not regarding California? I mean, there's so much.
Businesses are starting to move here. Tesla's moved here. I think they're moving to New York.
Well, how would you respond to your own, what Newsom did, right? Your own governor, right? Putting all these restrictions on, and then him being caught at a restaurant, not wearing a mask with tons of people there. And I mean, it's that whole thing that people are pissed off about. It's that entire thing. Do as I say, not as I do, right? And so
it's a complete joke.
Is. I mean, and so your representation, your leadership is already showing hypocrisy. But not only that, they're telling you what to do and then laughing in your face by going out and literally doing the opposite. And then his response was just like, "Oh, if I knew people were going to take pictures, I wouldn't have done it." No shit, Sherlock. If I knew I was going to get caught, I wouldn't have robbed that bank. That's basically what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And so I totally understand why people are uprooting. But the thing is it's inevitable, right? Because there's people that are uprooting that still love those California values, but they want to hang on to a little bit more money. So they're coming to the cheap place. So it is inevitable that those values are going to come here. And it can be scary for a state that's always been traditionally red. It can be also scary for people that have never been outside of Texas, because this is one state where a lot of people haven't left, And so it's really easy to kind of live in that box and be really narrow-minded. But then again, are they really that wrong? And it's like, because I think this election was the closest that, I mean, if you believe in the results, I think it was just the closest that Texas has ever been to voting Democratic,
Yeah, let's talk about that for just a second, because election fraud is probably been on everyone's minds ever since 2020 hit, because no one wanted Trump to win. No one wanted Biden to win. And
well, I think you can make the argument that even in 2016, it was because of the Russia collusion.
Oh, yeah. So, but it's been like more of a social and political issue, to that point of everyone is 100%. Talking about some type of fraud, whatever side you're on for the aisle. But like, my thing is, I love conspiracies. I think they're a ton of fun. But the thing is, like, I have to see some proof. I know everyone from both sides, like, hey, we're about to put out some hit piece that's going to show like how these people are, manipulating the election. For right now, based on the facts that I've seen, I think that it was really close. And I think that both parties, whether Republican or Democrat, have a lot of work to do to reinstill the faith of people. I think that's why it's so close. So, like, for instance, what kind of made me reevaluate things was Georgia. So a lot of the research I've been doing, a lot of the people I've been listening to, them discussing the election, the thing that my view is if the election had gone, if it was like won by a landslide by the Democrats, that would be kind of sketchy. There would be a lot more feel for fraud and all kinds of stuff. But because it was so close by only like, I think it was like a couple thousand votes, I think that goes to show that, hey, people are getting too comfy no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And I think when you do that and don't actually work for what you're supposed to be doing, it's very easy for things to be, really close, in an election.
Yeah.
Same thing with Texas, because the last, I think 10, 15, 20 years, I can't remember the last time that has been that close.
Right. No, that's exactly
and
it.
Yet, and I almost thought that we were going to get flipped too.
There was a lot of races that came down to, a couple thousand votes here and there. And I think one of the things I'll say first is, no matter what, throughout history, throughout every election, throughout local elections, not even on a national level, there has always been some sort, minuscule amount, big amount, whatever. There's always been some sort of fraud, whether it's 10 votes,
absolutely.
right? But, now we're talking, the thing that makes this such a big talked about topic is that now we're talking about massive voter fraud. But I think there's always been traditional voter fraud as far as just like, here's a couple hundred votes that are going to swing this way. And I'll tell you all the story, and I'm not admitting to a thing. But when I was living in Kentucky at about the age of 19, 20 years old. I was chasing that band life and living off of ramen noodles in another state. And the way my friends were making some money, I was 19, 20. I didn't really have the courage to do it. But some of the friends that I was around with there voted under false names in a local election, not a national election, for like a local mayor in some precinct. But they called some friends of theirs that were related to this guy running, and they said, hey, we'll cast those votes for, a couple bucks here and there. I don't know how much the money was, but I remember going there with them, waiting in the car, literally in the car going, I wish I was anywhere else right now. Why did I come to Kentucky? I'm like 19, 20. I just wanted to play music. What am I getting into, right? And I'm just hanging out with the wrong crowd there. And they came back with cash in their pockets. So I don't know, in claiming to them, they voted under false names and got paid off by the family of the person that was running. So that right there at 19, 20 years old, I, with my own two eyes, was open to voter fraud. Now, this was a very small level, but I knew then at 19, 20 years old, it's possible to do so. And people do this. People will go there. Now, I never knew if I think I moved months later back home. Never knew if that person won, but I can only imagine that he did if he was up to those tactics, But who's to say the other guy wasn't either? It just the whole thing, right?
Yeah. I think that like you said, there's always been some type of fraud, and definitely it happened this election, and it happened the last election, and when Bush and with Clinton. It's a given. Like, you have to be living on a rock to think that's not happening.
Well, I think we're in the day and age of like anything can be hacked, right? I mean, dude, when I was playing a lot of Xbox a couple years ago, my Xbox Live server got hacked and all my credit card information, and I had charges out the wazoo, dude, for the next 3 days until I noticed all over. And I'm like, things like that. Machines can get hacked, right? Data encryption. Supposed to be a very secure network here, and then they hacked it, and credit card information, and I think they got taken for a couple millions and millions of dollars. But we use machines, so electronic databases transferring files. This is the information age. This is the data age. It is not above anything to be able to be hacked, and so I think it's 100% possible. And I'm not trying to like stir up any conspiracies, but I think it's more ignorant to say in this day and age that nope, the government's totally good and everything that they've done is by the book, and we should trust them with all of our hearts. I think you should literally jump off the next bridge you see if you think that, because you're just making America worse.
It's so dumb when I hear stuff like that. I saw someone post, because I follow a couple fitness guys like most of us meatheads do, And he's like, you know what? You got to believe in the government. They're not out to get us. I'm like, bro, you don't even live in this country. Get out.
What's it like to think like
Okay?
that, though? I just want, like, talk about some peace, dude. Like, that's I mean, say he was American, right? Say a citizen is just like, bro, just trust in the government, bro. They've never done me wrong. Why would they do you wrong, Micah? And I'm just like, I just want to meet somebody that thinks that way. I'm like, what led you to believe this? You know?
I mean, yeah.
Isn't it weird?
There is some type of fraud, I'm sure, that happened. But here's the thing. I think too many people have gotten caught up on, like, we have to go search the truth. We have to go storm the Capitol, which we'll get to in a second. I'm like, okay, listen, unless there's something that actually can be done, unless there's some proof, we've got to move on, guys. I don't want to spend, this next 4 years worrying about all the political issues. I've got stuff to do. I've got a family to raise. I've got work to do. I've got dreams I want to try and accomplish. Why am I going to give you that much time?
Right.
Why do I need to sit on a Reddit forum and say, like, hey, this conspiracy, like the Tennessee explosion was plus XYZ? Maybe it wasn't. But right now, how's that going to help us right now?
Well,
I'm not saying people shouldn't be trying to find the truth. I'm saying that you should not let it consume you, which we have seen that happen on both sides, especially in the last 6 months.
Oh, yeah, and let's go back to that pie chart reference that I was talking about, right? If we were to look at our true pie charts, not one that we drew up to try to make us feel better, but if somebody like monitored you throughout the entire pandemic and myself as well, and they gave us this pie chart and they're like, and this is how much time on this pie chart you dedicated to politics, ranting about politics, and how much time it took away from the rest of the things on this graph, I think it would shock everybody. And I know it would shock me. And I know without even having to look at a pie chart like that I spent a lot of time I wish I didn't invested in, so exhausted in politics. I've never been this invested in politics until this year. I didn't even know that was possible for me, And what did it do? What did it do for everybody? Was what I said on Facebook going to change the way Joe Biden or Trump thought or anything? Was any of those rants on Twitter that thousands, if not millions, of people posted? Did it change votes? Did it gain votes in places? I don't think so, man. I think everyone had. I mean, social media has given everyone a voice, obviously, and now everybody has really taken advantage of that. Twitter is an absolute hellhole. I refuse to even log in these days.
I haven't been on there in years.
Yeah. I mean, it's so. I mean, my whole thing by that is like, now that the election's done, now that things are what they are, I think we as a collective, like citizens in America, have all realized how much time we dedicated to that and how unproductive it was, and how I personally refuse to ever go back to getting like that again, because I realized how taxing it is.
We say that, but I still feel like a good majority. Okay, so like for instance, the last 4 years, they've been trying to prove that Trump was, colluding with Russia, with China, with whoever they want to put. They're going to do the same thing to Biden.
For sure. You know it.
They're going to try to figure out like what dealings Hunter Biden had with some countries in the in Europe, maybe China, a bunch of stuff. It's just a cycle. It's just a vicious, bad cycle that. Who takes the burden of it? The American people.
Exactly, 100%. There's no winners ever. And this entire election process and leading up to it, it just did nothing but get personal. Like, it just got so personal now that people, no matter what, even if Biden implemented the greatest policies you've ever seen tomorrow, right? They would still be refused because now it's on a personal level to people. People are going, no matter what this person does because of how they treated Trump, I am going to go after them, and nothing they can do is ever going to be approved by me. And that is echoed throughout millions of Americans. And I see it every day. I hear it too. We live in Texas too. San Antonio is kind of an eclectic group of people. You got people on the left and the right. So you kind of hear both extremes all the time.
Right.
And I'm sure Fort Worth is as well. And
yeah, it's a good amount. You see a lot on both extremes of both sides, and then you see a good amount in moderates, luckily, which is nice, because I think when you're on either side, it's so easy to, no matter what happens, no matter what your party does, you're always going to foot the party line, which is what we saw with I forget how many people, I think a couple hundred, Trump enthusiasts storming the Capitol.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing I feel like what happened with, some of these other protests that everyone's like, well, they don't have any right. Why are they doing that? They're destroying businesses and stuff like that. And then, let's move to the Capitol riot, attack, protest, whatever you want to call it. That is some wild stuff.
That is something. I mean, dude, when I saw,
no matter what side, you should. That's not cool.
It was never going to work.
You're going to storm the Capitol.
Yeah, it was never going to work.
Yeah,
if that was the plan, though. I mean, there's so much with everything.
Well,
right?
maybe you can tell. Maybe you used to know more than I do. I heard that they were just trying to stop the recount. Or
that's what I personally
of
think. I think it was. I don't think it was ever supposed to escalate that much. What I personally think, and I could be wrong about this, and I'm sure somebody's gonna say I'm wrong because there's no facts to what happened, except the only fact that I can find is that one person that they have arrested and detained now was there to make Trump look bad. But that's one person, right? Who knows if there was more? But that's the argument that's going to be made. But in my personal opinion, what I think it was to delay that count. And
I just don't see what that was going to solve.
I don't either, man.
I mean, they'll start over.
But that's what we're led to believe, right? Now, what I believe right now about that could be 100% wrong. But how would you know the otherwise? Because and this was a collective thing all the way up to this election, all of the fake news that is out there on everything, right? You see all these reports. So you want to believe one thing, and if it fits your narrative, you're going to believe it. And I fell into that trap. Because you think you know something and you go to research it and you go Google it and there's an article out there to fit how you feel. No matter what, you can just type it. So if I believe the most asinine thoughts and I type them into Google, it's almost guaranteed somebody's written an article on it and backing up those asinine thoughts. That is the problem, man. Misinformation is spread. So what does it do? It makes people act out of their element.
Yeah. Before we get into some of the other details on that, the amount of memes that when the riot, the attack, we're just gonna call it an attack, because to me, no matter what side, that's what happened. Sure. Who knows what else they're going to do? The amount of memes that came out of that situation were perfect.
Oh, I mean the Bernie Sanders meme from the inauguration is probably my favorite thing in the world right now. I mean, people have just. I mean, look at all that energy and creativity that people are putting into memes, but they're not going to put that into factual evidence in an article. Or just facts in general. And it's like that at some point we're going to have to reevaluate priorities because they're out of whack. And when priorities are out of whack, anything's possible in the negative. And we're seeing that. So,
they're just the wild stuff. I mean, did you hear about? I know there was some lady that stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop.
Yep.
So many things taken out
Podium.
of the Capitol. I will say, so as much as I think that attack was stupid and anything that happens to them, they had coming. And I heard this point the other day on a podcast that the amount of fear that I think all those higher ups had, all the Congress people, all the senators, they were so scared. I'm like, okay, well, now you guys have a taste of what we feel like when we see you guys playing on the Hill, playing with our lives, playing with our finances, playing with everything that could help us. You're like, you know what? We'll take this up next week. We'll figure it out.
Right.
So I'm hoping that put a fear of God in them, because the amount of stuff that we've had to deal with all those assholes. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that it's taken 6 to 8 months for them to do a second stimulus check. And $600.
Oh, yeah. But,
it's the biggest freaking joke.
The thing that should piss
time.
off all American citizens is that we're giving other countries foreign aid. So we're giving other.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they're just giving us this hush money, basically. It's like. It's the most messed up thing. But you know what? There was so much. I remember during the stimulus thing, there was so much back and forth between the two-party system, Republicans and Democrats, that they couldn't even service their American people. because they can't work together. That right there, y'all are unfit to work together. You can't even service your American citizens in a time of need. I mean, no matter.
Well, it was so much stuff tied together. That's when
I know.
I don't get, everything is ballooned. Like you couldn't just come together. It's like, hey, let's just get everyone one stimulus check.
Yeah.
We'll worry about the small businesses on the next.
And I think
thing.
they even snuck some shit in there, like it's like weird stuff that didn't even matter during this pandemic. But I remember reading the bill, and there was like a section in there that was like, it is a Class A. We wanted to make it a Class A felony for people that are streaming movies illegally. It's like, okay, now's not the time. You know, we can go that route, you know, but you want to take my movies away and not pay me at the same time, and you think I got money to go buy some DVDs and I give a shit about that, but you were trying to sneak this in during like, it just showed how much, like, you were like, oh, we're not going to help the American citizens unless we get help. And they're like, well, that's too much help, or that we don't want to help that. We want you to focus on our American citizens. And it's like, well, no, we're not going to sign off on this unless we get what we want. That right there, man, should, no matter what party you're on, no matter what side you voted for, that should have told you a lot about how your government as a whole, because they have to work together, works. And it is insufficient.
Yeah. I mean, the amount, especially like on the blaming side, like I know on the right, they're like, oh, you know, the Democrats doing this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I saw what some of the, like, especially with Mitch McConnell, the senator, the leader, whatever, I forget it is.
Old Mitchie.
Yeah, the amount that he was blocking because he didn't want blah, blah, blah to go into more debt. I'm like, listen, what are you going to do about the 300 million Americans that maybe a million of them might get extra money? Because that's one of the things he said he didn't want to do this last check because he was afraid that some people making over 300,000 would get that money. Okay, you know what? It's just a cost of war. You need to get people that actually need the money, that are scared that they're going to have to put all 3 kids on the street with them. It's the middle of winter, and they have no idea what they're going to do. All the shelters are probably going to be full. Any type of aid is going to be non-existent because they're probably backed up in line and everything. So it's like, what's supposed to happen?
Here's how.
And you want to complain about let's just say 5 million Americans that might get an extra couple grand that make over 300. Isn't that kind of, you know,
right? But you got to think about it like too from like that perspective, but you also got to think about it from this one, is that a person can dictate, or a collective group of people can dictate whether American citizens can be serviced or not. Because I know no matter what, Democrats and Republicans needed that stimulus when they needed it then. So it didn't matter who you voted for. Democrats and Republicans were hurting. So both parties.
No. I bring that up because like the amount of people that I've listened to and talked with, they're always like, oh, well, the Republicans are trying to get us money and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, come on.
Oh, no. What I'm saying is like both parties as far as citizens needed the stimulus.
Oh, okay.
Needed the stimulus, right? No matter what.
Right.
And so
yeah,
people, a collective unit, can tell and vote against helping its citizens out during a pandemic, and those votes were casted. That should tell you everything as far as how your government is viewing its American citizens. No, we want to give money to Ukraine and yada yada yada. But and all the American families that are struggling, Democrat families, Republican, Libertarian families, all out there going, when are we gonna get some help here? And it's like, oh, when we get what we want. They said that without saying it by doing those votes. And I think everyone has realized that. So I know now, the only piece I have about that is I know now, because when you hit both party citizens like that, it raises awareness to who you are voting for to be in that chair, to have that ability to vote. And I think more than ever now, people realize that smaller elections rather than the president and vice president who you're voting for, the governors matter, the mayors matter, every seat in the House and Senate matters. You know, and I think people know that more than ever, because how many votes or how many voters would you say in the world have just voted down red line, their party, or blue line, just down the line, right? Down the line. Oh, they're Democrat,
so
boom,
many.
Democrat. Not knowing what policy they were voting for because they didn't research those people, because all they really cared about was it McCain and Palin or
people go based on party affiliation rather than
it's
what
very
the
tribal.
values are.
Yeah.
Yes. Like even this election, everyone's like, well, I'm voting for Biden because he's against Trump. I'm voting for Trump because he's for us. I'm like, okay, but when you look at the exact policies, why are you voting?
Mm-hmm.
And do you really think that's going to happen?
Yeah.
And who's making all these people accountable?
Well, the best way.
That's the biggest thing I have right now.
The best way I can put
And
it.
that's why
This is the best way I can put it, man. Is like, okay, so you've watched a UFC card before, right? So you got the main event, and then you got the prelims. The prelims being, the mayors, and then you get on the main card, and the main card would be more like the governor. And then you get to the main event, and the main event's like the presidential election, right? So I kind of look at it that way, right? And so you go on the prelims, and you're like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know, but I want him to win because he got red on his trunks. Remember, you ever been to a place watching a fight, and you don't know who's fighting, and you just pick somebody.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's got like a yellow belt. I want him to win. I feel like that's how it is when people are voting, and they don't know who they're voting for, but they're like, but he's a Democrat. But he's a Republican. Oh, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
This guy's a libertarian, and I'm a libertarian too. Boom. Like, I feel like that's how it is. And then when it gets to the governor, you're like, oh, well, I kind of know this person. It's like the main card, right? Well, I kind of know this person. I've seen him fight, or I've seen him, in this analogy, speak before.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to vote him, even though I haven't researched his fights. I haven't researched his policies. I'm just going to keep going back and forth. But I know his name. So I'm going for him. And I feel like that's how the government elections go. Now let's get to the main event, right? We're coming up on a McGregor and fight, right? Oh, man.
Dude, that's coming to Dallas.
Yep.
Soon.
Well, it's like, okay, so the presidential election in this term would be a McGregor fight. Well, man, I'm a big fan of McGregor. I'm a big fan of Trump. Oh, I'm a big fan of Khabib. Well, I'm a big fan of Biden. And so now you start to see the people that have really paid attention, right? But they're really tribal to their party. The tribalness is still there. When Connor goes down, or Trump in this instance goes down, his followers are pissed. And then, if Khabib went down, or Khabib wins, and Biden in this case, and his fighters are talking shit, or his supporters are talking shit to all of the McGregor Trump supporters, right? And I'm not trying to say McGregor's a Trump supporter. And you just stay with me here.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at it, man. I think that's the best way to explain it, because I feel like there's no more accurate representation of how people vote. I think voting is one of the most carelessly done things in America.
Yeah, especially like there's no real chance for people that actually could try and make a difference. Like at the end of the day, like whoever is going to be the head of the party and be the candidate for that party, it's already been predetermined based on whatever deals they made, based on who didn't piss that person off, whatever it is. At this point, what we need to do is hold everyone that goes up the ladder accountable. I would love for someone to like propose like, hey, you know what? We're going to take everyone down to just one term. You get one term to do your job, and that's it. Because, at the end of the day, you spend the last year or two just campaigning, and then you really don't really care about anyone else. And you're only there for your followers. I think that's the biggest thing that people didn't understand this presidency is Trump was a president to his followers and the most radical of them because he wanted them to vote for him in the next election. And we kind of saw that with Obama as much because he wasn't as engaging with his radical side of his party. He was probably the most presidential, if you will, president we've had in the way that he talked and spoke, whether he was right or wrong or whatever back deals he had. But going forward, what do you think is going to happen in the next few years? To me, everyone I've talked to, they're like, oh man, I stocked up because it's the end of the world with this. And I was like, listen, guys, I'm going to go to work.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I'm going to be doing. And
here's how I feel, man.
Somebody's here, what you think?
I feel like the best case scenario is that COVID gets knocked away because it was the best thing Americans can wish for is that this was all just a political stunt, and that's saying something that's the best we can wish for because what I honestly think, and this is just my opinion, what I honestly think is going to happen is that the world's going to slowly but surely start to turn back to normal now that now that there's a new face in town. And now you're going to see these Democratic, heavily locked down areas raise that away and open up now because now they got their control there. And I really feel like you're going to see, because all of a sudden things are starting to happen. New York said they're going to start opening back up. The minute Biden was elected and the Supreme Court said, no, we don't see any voter fraud, New York's like, all right, baby, we're back in the game. And it's like,
Yep.
and it seems all political. So honestly, what I think is going to happen here in the next, however many years Biden's alive, I think that, he,
2 years.
I think the dude's got a year and
President
a half.
Harris.
Yeah, it's all about Harris. What I think is going to happen is things are going to start going back to normal. But nothing will ever return to normal. Nothing will, because there's a stain and a scar in people's hearts now with what's happened and how everything's transpired up till here. But there's a lot of people, like myself and you included, that have taken this time and learned a lot about themselves and came out on the better end of things. So there is that too. So my honest belief is like, no matter what happens in life, because you had a great day today, Micah, somebody had a shitty one. Like Newton's, laws of relativity, they reign true not only in physical objects, like because we are in Republican. Okay, think about this. Because Republicans are in such shambles right now and so angry and so confused and basically just pissed off at how things have happened. And they don't feel comfortable. A lot of them never want to vote again. On the opposite end of that spectrum, you got Democrats that are throwing parties with masks off right now. You think COVID's a thing no more? Nah, bro. They're so stoked. I mean, there's massive gatherings, with Democratic people who never came out before, so it's,
man, I honestly think that it's going to be a while before we even see a sense of what people are going to consider normal. I think that people's eyes have been really open to both sides of the political spectrum. And I think that's pissed off enough people that I don't see that a lot of these people that, like, especially like the governors who have closed down their states, or there's mayors who closed down their cities, I don't think the scrutiny is going to go away. Mm-hmm. I think we're going to see the next couple months, everyone's be like, yay, Trump's out. Yay, Biden's in. He's got, all this savior type BS that he's going to implement. But I see that there's going to be a big change. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of lawsuits that happen, a lot, both on the state and the federal level, of like, hey, listen, are you telling me that the minute that the next president gets elected, now all of a sudden we're open up?
Oh, yeah.
When we've had a vaccine the last couple months?
I think you're going to see Gavin Newsom be thrown out of there. I mean, Californians don't like him. And that's saying a lot, dude,
Yeah. I mean, like when we say we're going to see parties, like, yeah, but it's a very small fraction of the country. The rest of them, we've all been suffering. We're all pissed off. I mean, I think most Americans are in the middle, and we're pissed off at both parties. Like, hey, you guys made us suffer when you guys were arguing on the Senate floor and then going back to your houses. Right. All these influencers are like, oh, you should sit in with a mask. When you guys already have $15 million in the bank and you guys just took a vacation in the Bahamas or whatever.
Right. No one's going to forget those days.
No.
That's for sure.
But on the other hand, as much as everyone want to say the next 4 years are going to be gloomy, I'm going to hope for the best. I'm going to hope that when Biden speaks of like unity and stuff, maybe he's just saying that to get, everyone to try and come together. Hopefully, whatever he says, he's actually going to try and do. Whether he actually lives long enough to make half of that happen.
Dude, whenever Biden speaks, bro, I just don't think he believes anything he's saying either. I think he's just like, okay, sir, you know what you got to say. Like, nothing he says is ever like impactful to me. I mean, it's no surprise I'm not a Biden supporter, you know what I'm saying? But like, it just nothing he
Yeah.
says, it just comes off as like, this is the guy that's gonna fix things. Like, and even Democrats know, dude, how many Democrat friends I have that voted for him, but they only voted for him because they hate Trump, you know? But they
Yeah.
didn't even like the guy, you know? So you have already, you already have a fan base that doesn't really like you anyway. That wasn't the case when Trump came in. All the right-wing Republicans loved that guy. But you got an incumbent now that even his own party doesn't like, and everyone's just waiting for him to die off so Camilla can take over. I mean, dude, that is echoed from people that have voted for him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I can see that definitely happen in the next couple years. Like, I think with him, he'll either die of something. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
Do you think Camilla Harris kills him?
I think she puts him in a little metal box in the back of the White House, and she's like, he is resting.
He's resting.
He's resting his eyelids.
He's sleepy Joe Biden. She's like, yeah.
But in the meantime, I'll take advantage of anything they puts out that he actually gets done. Like, there's some cool things. Like, although one thing that's pissing me off is he was saying like, yeah, we're gonna do $2,000 checks, and now it sounds like, actually, we're just gonna do $1,400 because we sent you $600 already.
Exactly.
He's talking
Ukraine needs a little bit more money, so
just a little bit.
Yeah.
Hunter's running along.
Gotta take care of Hunter out there.
He's talking about doing a $14,000 tax credit for new home buyers. So if you want to buy a home, think about that.
Now's the time. C. Scoop Roberts, Nashville's rockin' realtor.
Exactly. There's a bunch of other stuff. Like, I hope maybe he actually tries and do it. I hope that if people, actually want to get things done, maybe this is the reset that the country needed. I don't know. But all I know is I'm going to keep moving forward, just like I know you are, and we're going to make the best of it. And
that's all you can do, man. These people that are just wanting to lay down and die, you're no better than, okay, so the Republicans right now that just want to lay down and die because Trump's out, you're no better than the Democrats that were screaming in the streets. You've seen those memes of those women. They're just like, nah, that
exact meme is the same, is equal to the guy with the Viking helmet.
Boom. It's the same thing. You're becoming, so both parties have so many similarities, dude. They're so a lot alike. Like the Babylon Bee put out this cartoon where it was like a bunch of name calling, and a Trump supporter came up to a Biden supporter, and they're just name calling like fascist, like racist, and then like they get to the end of their name calling and they got no more, and they're just like, you're like me, man. You look a lot like me. And they finally were just like, yeah, bro, you I don't got anything else to call you. You're just like me, because they're the same thing, but the worst of those parties. Like, they're the same thing, but on the opposite spectrum of beliefs. But they react the same. They talk to each other the same. If you get on Twitter, go tell me right now that a Republican is better than a Democrat, and vice versa. Go tell me that a Democrat is better than a Republican, about how they are treating each other. Everybody's at each other's throats, saying the worst things possible, and nothing but causing more division. And it's like, okay, once we realize that we're not all indifferent here, or we're not all different, then I think a lot of progress is going to happen, because I've seen the worst from Democrats, and I have seen the worst from Republicans about how they are acting with these things. And mind you, we've all been alive for Trump's presidency, so we got to see these things with our own eyes. Both parties have. I mean, no one party can claim righteousness over the other. I mean, maybe Ron Paul, because, he's just like doesn't drive in a car and just wants to like preserve the world. I mean, who's going to hate on that guy?
Is he still alive?
He might be, and then again... Neuralink, right? He's probably gonna live forever, dude. I've known about Ron Paul since I was like 3 years old, bro, and I don't even know why.
That's all he talked about was Ron Paul. I'm like, Dad, who is this guy?
Paul, yeah, like Ron Paul's been in like, but he's always just
the guy.
Been,
he's the guy.
He's the guy. He doesn't drive cars and just rides a bike to preserve the ozone. Like, I don't know. All I can say, dude, is I throughout my life being in high school for when Obama became president, I was in high school in Colorado. Before that, Bush, I was like in middle school, 9/11, obviously. So I'm trying to think about my personal timeline here. My personal timeline goes like this. I see America like a mom, a single mother. right? America's a single mother, and it's had 46 stepdads, right? Or, I mean, American citizens are the children of Mother America, and we've had 46 stepdads. But throughout my life, I've had about 5, you know?
Yeah.
And only
some
3.
of them feed us, some of them beat the shit out of us.
And some of them beat the shit out of us. But, but only so I've had 5 throughout my life, but only 3 did I ever talk to or ever watch or ever experience, right? And that would be Bush, Obama, and Trump, right?
Right.
And so how I feel about Obama, right, was when Obama came into, before he was elected, it was all about, and I was in high school during this, it was all about ridding the evil that is Bush. It was all about get Bush out, and we're voting for the Messiah. Dude, people at my high school were calling him the Messiah, right? Like Obama's this new, the Messiah. He's calm, cool, collective. He's a hell of a statesman. I'll give him that. The way he talked, he was a hell of a statesman. Didn't mean I liked anything he did or policy-wise, but he was a hell of a statesman. He made the presidential optics look really good as far as his vernacular and everything.
Yeah.
And then you got Trump, who's on the complete end of the opposite end of that spectrum, right? But I felt like when I was in high school, it was all about getting rid of Bush, and I voted for Obama when I was 19, 18 years old. It was the first time I ever voted because I could finally vote, but I was easily influenced by my peers at my school. So, but the mission was, let's get rid of Bush. Bush is the evil, and this guy's gonna fix everything. And I was working at a pizzeria, and the owner would close the door and put the close sign on there, flip the close sign whenever Obama would speak. You know, it was this new person, and I just remember this energy about him. Before he was elected, it was this guy is going to be the guy that fixes all of our problems. So I truly believe that. And so I voted for him at 18. And then years go by, right, in our timeline, and I grow up. And I start to see things I don't like with his presidency, and I start to see how weak we looked as Americans, how weak our military was. My brother in the military during his tenure, and my brother's still in the military. And I just remember how weak I felt as an American, how weak I felt as a person, or just how weak I felt our country was as I grew up. Now you take that 18-year-old guy, he didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like that. I felt like this Obama guy is going to rid that Bush evilness away. And I don't know why I ever thought Bush was evil. I don't know. I mean, I honestly was a little too young to pay attention to his presidency. But what I'm trying to say is the opposite ends of the spectrum came into play. So how it became was Trump gets in now, and everything that for 8 years that we endured with Obama, done, right? Totally curved to the other side of the spectrum. And so now that Trump's out, Biden steps in, first day, Keystone Pipeline gone, executive, what was it, 9, 10, 20 executive orders signed?
Yeah, it's going to be the same thing with Biden. He's
and so we're just
going to reversal. So it's going to be the same thing every 4 years.
Yeah, constantly just working against each other. And now we're on our 46th stepdad, right? And he just reversed all the shit that 45 did, and 45 reversed all the shit that 44 did, and it just goes back and back and back and back. We keep continuing that trend and not making progress. We just keep going, well, who's in charge gets to make the decisions. That's going to tank us, man. Where is the progress here? Because we just deleted 4 years of it with Trump. And then when Trump came in, we deleted 8 years if there was any progress, there. I mean, it depends on what policy you want. I didn't really see any progress with Obama, but if there was any, Trump deleted it. And so it's how long do we keep this?
I think that every presidency, and just going to wrap this up, I think there's going to be a lot of the good stuff that we don't see is going to be what good came out of that, that stepdad, whatever he left behind.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stuff that we see on the surface that we're going to have so many issues with, and that we're going to think is, negative, or either side's going to hate about that stepdad. There's going to be a lot, I know, for instance, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't like that Trump did, but I know one good thing that he did do was for the military, that he beefed up the budgets. He gave them a lot more leeway and a lot more control for them to run it as a military and less like a business. I'm sure the same thing with Obama. I'm sure there were some things that we saw if I took more hold of when he was president. I don't remember that much, and I didn't go into politics as much as I understand now. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Bush. Same thing with Clinton. I'm sure there was something that has been left, from that stepdad, that we, the kids, some of us liked, some of us didn't like. I'm sure there's something on the surface or beneath the surface that no matter what side you're on, you would find something good that would help you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so, for your timeline goes like, I wasn't really involved too much in Obama because those are my still youthful years. But now you're involved because, you've grown up, you're paying more attention, right? So in turn, there's a lot of people on Twitter today that are 18, 19 years old, tweeting at Republicans how stupid they are, tweeting at Democrats how stupid they are. And I remember myself when I was 18 or 19 so easily influenced, but I never had that power to do that. Never had that power to go at people older than my age on a social media site and have an impact like we do today. And so the younger generation at 18 and 19 now has a voice, but is it a voice we should be listening to? Because if an 18-year-old is going to tell me who to vote for, I am going to laugh hysterically to the point of death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if 18-year-old's like, you're so stupid that you're voting for this guy because of this, and that, I am going to have a very, very powerful laugh, followed by a, what are you doing in my house? It is 3 a.m. And I'm just kidding. Hopefully not.
I think the point of all this is, let's try not take things too seriously where it consumes us all. Let's try to understand that, to me, it feels like no one really has the best intentions for any of us, and it's up to us, the individuals, to treat each other the way that we want to be treated, and hopefully keep going and have some type of hope going into the future.
I'll tell you what, you'll never worry about your president if all the citizens came together and actually practiced unity and put our differences aside. You wouldn't even give a shit who's in office.
Yeah, totally.
I'm telling you.
So one of the last things I want to talk about before we move on, because I may have to cut this a little short. I think my child is screaming in the background, so I need to go.
Oh, okay.
Make sure
no
she's
worries,
good.
Man. No worries.
So one of the last things on the political side is, I know QAnon has been a big factor on certain political affiliates.
Yes.
They were really big on Trump being the savior of so many things, and I can't tell how many articles, how many posts, videos I have seen shared by everyone saying like, they got baby killers, they're drinking, was it a Crenon or
adrenochrome?
Yeah, adrenochrome.
Yeah.
So whether or not there's any truth to any of that, listen, I've got an open mind. If I find some stuff, cool. If not, I don't know.
I went down that rabbit hole a little bit with the adrenochrome thing. It started to see really attractive as far as like people were using it, and then I think it was just so easy early in the pandemic to fall in these rabbit holes of conspiracies, and I myself did, because what the hell else was I going to do? Sitting on my couch soaking up YouTube, and then I come across conspiracies and I'm just following that rabbit, dude. All the way.
Dude, they were a ton of fun. I'll give it that. There's some stuff I was like, man, this connects way too easy.
It did, man. And then when it made sense because you couldn't find anything else that did, you were like, this is it.
Yeah. But I was just thinking, what do you think the state of that? Because it was such a big proponent of people wanting to support Trump, because he talked about draining the swamp, and they thought that was basically a way of him saying like he's going to get all the baby killers, round them up. We kept hearing different dates like, hey, this date he's going to put out a hit piece, or there was a big lawyer that I forget all the big major cases he represented. He tweeted out a few things like, hey, I'm about to release this big piece of information.
I think you're talking about Linwood, right?
Yeah, Linwood.
Yeah.
And all those. And now that, Trump is no longer, our president, he didn't do any big announcement. nothing that I could see, other than little stuff here and there that really didn't equal to what people were saying. What does that say for the state of conspiracies, and especially with QAnon going forward?
I think it's a good question, man. I really think it's a byproduct of the lack of integrity in journalism these days. So the lack of integrity in journalism has done nothing but produce a lot of fake news. It's done nothing but produce division because political affiliation matters to these publications now.
Well,
and we're seeing
not even so much that. What do you think? Because like I know a big part of it was Reddit. I know Reddit shut down a good amount of QAnon. I know that they basically shut down QAnon completely on Twitter and a few other platforms. So aside from, the news sources and anything major or independent, what do you think it means for the nitty gritty for people that really believe this stuff? Do you think it goes down, rabbit hole and people are like, okay, well, I guess that was a phase?
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good question. I really think, man, I don't think there's anything you can tell those people that's going to change their mind, because they found answers to them. It doesn't matter if these answers are right or wrong. They found their answers that made them sleep well at night throughout this QAnon tenure, right? Or this QAnon file transfer or whatever have you on whatever platforms. And so I don't think there's anything you can tell any of those people that are living by those codes, or there's anything those people or that believe in that stuff. I don't think there's anything you can tell them to change their mind, because they still are holding on to the fact that Trump's still going to come back, And it's just, this is the only thing is giving them hope, right? Giving them, if you're a far right-wing QAnon supporter, the only thing that's giving you hope right now was that QAnon, because at this point you've seen Biden, who to a far right QAnon person is their worst nightmare.
Yep.
Now you've seen your worst nightmare take in office, and now you've seen the House and Senate flip blue, and so now you feel helpless, but these secret messages keep coming to you when you feel helpless at night. These secret messages keep getting shared around, and millions of people going, "Don't give up hope. There's still this, and that gonna happen." They're still, and they're just going, "This is all I got. This is all I got."
I think we're going to see a small, if not large, insurgence of or uptake, and everything that the right has accused the left of doing. I think we're going to see them start to do it, but they're going to be somehow justified. And I think it's going to be a very dangerous game, just because we've seen it on the left, but we haven't seen it that much come from the right. And it's going to be fun to see how that plays out.
Well, it's a battle of who's the pettiest, because no one can say that the Democrats didn't stoop to petty levels and all the way, right? And then now all those examples that were accepted, there was a lot of petty things that were allowed to happen during Trump's presidency. And so now that the right-wing supporters have seen that and endured all that, they're going, oh, time for me to flex my power now. And so it was what you were saying earlier, is it's going to be this revolving door. But it's a battle of pettiness. So your tactic here for the new incumbent is to model the previous part, or to model the Democrats' strategies. So you're going to do exactly what they did to you, so you feel that you have, one, provided justice or got your revenge.
Right.
And I don't think there's anything that's going to stop that unless people either mature up, or we try this thing called unity. We try to put these differences aside and go, okay, all that bloodshed and burning down and riots, got people's attention, but it didn't do nothing but piss people off. And then this DC, attack or riot, whatever you want to put the label on, that did nothing but piss people off. It pissed off right-wing people and obviously Democratic people. And it's like, so how long do we keep implementing these strategies that literally, next to a bucket of shit, the only difference is a bucket? And how are we just going to keep pursuing that and trying to find progress? You can't fight fire with fire, because you're just going to burn the whole city down.
That's true. Can't fight fire with fire. All right.
But dude, I got to say this before we wrap up. The one thing that I'm super stoked about, that I've been talking about, my personal beliefs, I'm a Christian, and one thing that I'm really happy about is that people are starting to finally wake up to these false prophets out there. So how many people prophesized, oh, God just spoke to me. Trump's going to win the presidency. Don't worry about Biden. Trump's going to win the presidency. And there were so many prophets prophesying this thing. I had pastors galore sending me messages about this, how I saw it in a light. God came to me in my dream and showed me. I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and God stopped the entire world and came to my subdivision, yanked me out of my sleep, and showed me that Trump was gonna win. You know, and I'm just like, one, false prophecy is a big ego. Unfortunately, I've been through it way too much in my life, but I think people woke up to it, that a lot of these people that you've trusted in your life have failed you as far as going, oh, God told me this, God told me that, and this is how you need to rule your life. And I think they just outed themselves being full of shit. So
yeah. All right, man. I hate to cut this short, but I got a screaming baby and that I need to go help out with. But this has been a good first episode. Hopefully,
we're coming back.
Hopefully everything is working properly. If not, I apologize to everyone, but we will get this worked out. I promise.
Yeah.
And we are
final 30 seconds. Thoughts.
I hope music comes back, man.
He's like, bro, I'm sorry, I just came out of this house, bro. I just didn't want this music coming back.
All right, man. Anything for you before we go?
Yeah, I gotta say, in the next episodes, just talking about the Guilty Party podcast here. Obviously, this is the first episode of season 2, and we're gonna have some guests on. So I want to give you guys an insight. Our first and very guest is gonna be a man named Jonathan Lee. Jonathan Lee has shared with me and Micah his first 4 chapters in his book called The Death of the Human Experience. And we're going to have him on to discuss his book, The Human Experience, and what that entails and all that's in between. And that's going to be one of our next podcasts on here, so keep an eye out for that. And we will post all the links, and we will post this up to get you guys ready for it. But thank you for your support. Guilty Party Podcast is back, season 2, baby.
Let's go,
and
baby.
Like and share this video when you see it or this audio. Love you guys.
All right, love y'all. See ya.